welcome. So, I'm Sandra. I'm in my element today in nature. I am hoping for it to ground me as I introduce a little bit about who I am, where I come from, and what my passions are today. So, my journey into spirituality started a long time ago. Even though I wouldn't say at that time that it was a journey of spirituality. I was a physicist. I was doing a PhD in Germany, and it was something that I had wrapped all my identity around because I had loved physics for a very long time. I did not perceive myself as good at it. I did not perceive myself as a natural in maths and physics, but it was something I was very fascinated by. And so being in that position was kind of my lifelong dream. And it was also amazing for time until I slowly started noticing that actually my heart is not in this anymore. And when you invest so much energy into something, it's really hard to stop and say this is not right anymore. So I did not listen to that inner voice. Instead, I kept going and kept going until I fell in a burnout and a depression. And I had a very understanding group at the university, and I had a very understanding partner, and I got support. I was allowed to break down. But in the end, nothing worked. I fell into this deep, first dark night of the soul in my life. And so what really happened was that all of the identity that I had built up around who I was broke down. I realized maybe I'm not a physicist anymore. Maybe I'm not this happy person anymore, because obviously I'm depressed now. I can't be the happy person. And more I fell into this dark depth of confusion and nothingness, where I came to realize that everything is concepts, nothing really matters. I was not allowing that love behind the nothingness to flow through me. At that time, I had no idea what that would be. So instead, it was just darkness, it was just confusion, and what I found was meaninglessness, pointlessness. And none of the identities I had attached to made sense anymore. I started to lose memory of the attachments. I started to lose memory of the personality that I had, the childhood I've been having, childhood memories, and even just how to show up in a normal day. Like, what are my routines? How do I get to work? I couldn't really get that done anymore because I was so disidentified with my whole life, really. And so I went through that dark phase, and the first thing that kick-started my healing was when serendipitously I found a yoga teacher online. Online yoga was a very new thing at that time, and so it was free practice. And she was this amazing presence that I had needed all of my life. Adi Amar, she's still my favorite yoga teacher. Grounded, strong, graceful, loving unconditionally is what I felt from her. And that was exactly what I needed. And what she taught me was to stop and feel my body again. So literally, from the soles of my feet, to just feel the sensations at the soles of my feet, and learning to feel how I use my feet, how I distribute the weight in my feet, and just starting from there, slowly building up and learning to feel my body again through physical yoga. So that was the start of it for me. It was not that I hadn't enjoyed my body before. I had been an avid climber since I was 15, and that was my absolute somatic joy. But I didn't do that when I was depressed and when I was in my dark night, because I was so exhausted I didn't have the energy to go outside. So she helped me reconnect in that very numbness that I was experiencing, to reconnect with my body. And from that, I started over time to reconnect with my emotions, and I became very emotional, and I discovered that I was actually highly sensitive. So I wasn't just sensitive, I top scored like 10 of 10 on the highly sensitive test by Elaine Aron. And that opened a new world for me, where I realized I didn't have to be this tough presence in the world. I could also be a sensitive person. And that was a beautiful healing journey for me. And so the next step of my healing started when me and my amazing life partner at the time moved from the city, or rural area of the city, to the Alps, to a beautiful place in nature with mountains all around. And I started to realize just how important nature would be for my healing and for my happiness in the world even now. And so I started to go out, even still depressed, I started to go out in the valleys, finding these amazing, beautiful waterfalls wherever I went. It was a magical journey from the start. It was serendipitous, just finding that place to live in. And then more and more we started to go up in the mountains and doing mountain tours, and I rediscovered this adventure side that is such a key part of me. It's like I have this need to push my boundaries at all times, and not least my physical boundaries. So it's kind of like my body mind is working in analogy. When I push my physical boundaries, I learn to push my mental and emotional boundaries as well. And I was also learning that when you go and exhaust yourself in the mountains, you have less barriers to your emotions, and so they become more able to float up. And I was not only feeling sadness anymore, I was starting to feel this incredible joy, more and more towards bliss. And I was very, very grateful for life. I was very, very grateful for my healing. And so the more gratitude I started to feel, by now I had been diving into yoga and all the rungs of yoga for quite a long time, and I was now starting to feel a natural surge of devotion. I wanted to be one with the divine. And this was still a secret for me because I came from this scientific background, right? And being spiritual was kind of maybe not fully okay within myself. I had internalized that. I was a bit ashamed of that. So the next big breakthrough, I think, came. Well, one breakthrough was when I discovered Reiki and energy healing, which was also quite serendipitous. So I just started to do this deep relaxation exercise every night that is a precursor for Yoga Nidra. And I did it just to rejuvenate my body, because I was out in the mountains all the time at this time, and I felt that I wanted to recuperate quicker and get to relax my body more. So I did that 1 hour or something exercise every night for a year, and I started to realize that I can actually sense the energy moving in my body, and I can actually even move it around in my body. So for example, if I had sprained an ankle, then I could sense the energy of that sprain in my ankle, and I could begin to lift it. I could begin to start to move it. This came, I believe, because I had practiced with such focus on being absolutely present with every part of my body, and just allowing that presence, that awareness, to let everything in my body be seen and be acknowledged and be loved. So I was talking about all of this on the Putiverse, which is another, I had discovered that I am multipotentialite, that I'm neurodiverse and have all of these interests, and so I felt a safe community of other neurodiverse people in the Putiverse, which is an online forum. And I was describing these sensations, these insights that I was having, and someone mentioned, well, that sounds like Reiki or energy work to me. So I got into Reiki. I was very curious about it. I was still hesitant because spirituality was still woo-woo to me, but I allowed that to be my journey and to just see where it led. And I got licensed as a Reiki master, and I realized that this is my calling. It was a part of my calling, it wasn't the whole one, but at the time I just felt amazed, because when I was doing sessions on myself and on others, I'd never felt so aligned and alive and uplifted in my life. I'd had some really uplifting experiences at points, but Reiki was just something else for me. And so it was really powerful. But then the next really key thing that happened to me was that I was starting to align with what I actually want to do in this world. So in order to enable my whole transition from physics, I'd been a web developer for a while, which was amazing because I could work on completely flexible hours. I could be out when there was sunshine, and I could sit inside and work when it was rain, and that was crucial for me. I needed that flexibility to heal. But now I was starting to feel that I need to work with something that I am actually most suited to do, that is my soul's calling, and Reiki felt like part of that, but it didn't feel like all of it. So I took the huge step and I went to a yoga teacher training that would definitely be another key part to change my life. And so it was this amazing gathering of soul sisters and a soul brother in Costa Rica, deep in the jungles on the Caribbean coast. And we got this amazing opportunity to really share ourselves intimately, to express our deeply held emotions, desires, wishes, letting go. There were fire rituals where we could burn away things that we wanted to let go of. And that was the first time that I voiced with other people who I really barely knew my most secret, innermost desire. Okay, so this is again coming from this insecurity around spirituality, but at this point I had really leaned into, this is what I want to do. So that desire was to experience divine union. I told myself for a long time that maybe this is something that you have to go through lifetimes to achieve. Maybe I should temper my desire. But I had this deep, deep heart calling, heart knowing that I can do it in this lifetime. That doesn't have to be that complicated. I don't have to listen to all the voices outside that say, oh, you have to burn through your karma through hundreds of lifetimes. Maybe I've done that, or maybe I'm going to do that in this lifetime. So I wanted to experience divine union within myself. I wanted to experience wholeness, having this deep awareness of love flowing through me and everything being connected to everything. And I knew kind of that it was possible. I had had glimpses, but I had no idea how to live in that consciousness, in that awareness. So in this safe circle of friends, I voiced that for the first time, and that was in 2019. And the time since then, honestly, has been a roller coaster because all of that karma, well, I would say all of that ancestral trauma that I've been carrying, like literally every insecurity I'd ever felt in my life came up with force to be healed. And it's it's always this way. I've learned more and more that when we have a pattern that we're slowly becoming aware of, it won't change until we act differently. And we can't act differently until we've fully met the need of that pattern. So what I found next was my number one tool to learn to see and to meet those needs. And so that tool for me was the completion process. And with all of my, decade of searching spiritually, this is the only one tool that helped me completely see through my patterns of bulldozing, of deflection, of not believing that I had any problem inside myself, projecting things outside of myself. So I learned to sit with my emotions instead of running away from anxiety and keeping myself occupied, keeping myself distracted, or running away from emotions covering grief or difficult emotions like powerlessness or isolation, abandonment. I learned to instead sit down and really meet those head on. Because what happens when you fully allow an emotion within you, or first start with just a trigger and see what response is that trigger evoking in your body, and completely being with that response and seeing where does it lead, is there an emotion behind this, and fully letting that emotion be felt in your entire body and express itself, then it always carries a wisdom. It carries a need that was never fulfilled. And so I learned that a lot of things can be trauma. And I had actually experienced complex trauma in my childhood that I had never fully recognized. And this is because I had this feeling that I was loved, but there was also a lot of family trauma, a lot of shocking grief events and stuff that I never really got to process. I was highly sensitive from the start, and I would have needed someone to guide me, someone to teach me to put boundaries between myself and the experiences around me. Instead, I was completely enmeshed. There were no boundaries. And so much of my journey in healing those inner child wounds was about learning to set boundaries around what is me and what is someone else's, and learning to meet the needs of being seen, of being heard, of having attention, all the things that I, at certain parts of my childhood, never got to have met in the ways that I needed. And to learn to process the intensity of emotions that I was born with. For some of us, this is a really hard thing to do. It's like we've got this profound giftedness in feeling. We can feel things very, very intensely, and so when we do, it's very easy to fall into overwhelm and not be able to deal with it at all, because we were never taught to sit down with it and be fully present with it and love it all. So this is really what the completion process taught me. It taught me to sit with it. It taught me to find the needs and to heal those inner children. Like every time something happens that is unresolved, for example, it can be as simple as you're crying in bed in your room as a 6-year-old and no one is coming to comfort you. You need that comfort, but no one is coming to comfort you. As simple as that can be an unresolved thing. And so being open to all of those simple things, meeting those needs within yourself, is what creates this sense of wholeness. Accepting all the pains, all the emotions that you were never able to hold, that is what creates this wholeness. Everything we reject within ourselves or outside of ourselves, which is our mirror, like the world is literally our mirror, rejection creates the separation from all, like from this God awareness that we want to feel, from this intimacy in relationship that we want to feel. It all comes from the rejections inside of ourselves. And so just being with that, allowing the rejections to be there and allowing what has been rejected to be there, that started to create my sense of wholeness. And since I started with this method, it's really been a blessing, because I'm seeing the same profound transformations and shifts in life that were enabled for me. I can now see that in other people that I guide through this process, and it is so amazing. It feels like a blessing to be able to do this work. So I've got about 3 things now that just makes me feel the most alive, apart from being out in the mountains or in nature. And it's the energy work. I just feel blessed every time I get to do a session, because I get to meet the soul presence, the soul of the person that I'm with, that I'm sharing this energy with. And it's just the most sacred, beautiful thing. And I feel the same with the completion process. I really get to go down into the depths with that person and see them completely, witness them exactly where they are, and love them exactly where they are, and feel that love coming through slowly as we start to accept ourselves. So I'm very grateful for that. And the last thing is writing, which I'm doing on the side as well, and I get to share all of these profound experiences of love and joy and bliss and despair and all the other things I've gone through and maybe going through. Yeah, so those are the 3 main areas. Of course, when looking back at all the tools that I've gathered, all the wisdom and love that I've gathered in my heart, I am devoted now to be of service to others. So my initial devotion to be in union was within myself, and now that has turned outwards too. I want to be in union with everything and everyone. I see everyone as a part of myself, and I wish their happiness, their love, their blessings in life. And so what used to come from a sense of I need to help others to help myself is now this channeling, really, of this energy of sharing myself and my gifts in a way that can help someone. And I think that is something that we all need to do in order to feel alive and happy and fulfilled in the world. And so I also give spiritual guidance and mentoring to find those gifts within ourselves, and to identify the blockages between where we are right now and how we want to show up in the world, so that we can show up as the selves that we want to be. And also just experiencing all those feelings within ourselves that we want to feel. Like, we all want to feel profound joy, we all want to feel alive, we all want to feel passionate, sexual, sensual, soft, we all want to feel all those things. And so having gone through it all myself, I am devoted to help identify blockages and see in what different ways we might be able to overcome those blockages within ourselves. So that's a little bit about me and what I do. If you have any questions, feel free to post them. I'd be delighted for your feedback. If anything comes up for you, if you're going through something similar, please share. And thank you so much for tuning in to me today. I hope to connect more with you soon. Namaste.